course, different countries, Austria, Poland, and then when he went into Belgium and France, then we knew it was pretty serious.
When I was in high school, I don't think the subject of the military forces in Europe was ever brought up. It was so far removed from our day-to-day activities and at that time from our future that it was something we never discussed. I don't recall any instance when anybody ever brought up that subject.
Dan Carmichael was the great athlete of the class of '36. He was a forward and captain of the basketball team, played football, golfed, and was an outstanding pitcher and third baseman for the baseball team. At the end of the year, he was awarded the Yale Cup for excellence in athletics. He went on to Princeton and continued his sports career with much success. When Dan attempted to enlist in the military, some of his old sports injuries got in the way. He was classified as 4F, which would have exempted him from all military service. But Dan persevered. He withheld his 4F status while applying at the Navy Air Corps office and was accepted for training.
Significant air battle had developed, and my wingman Nolan Harrigan and I missed the rendezvous to return to the carrier, so we were going back by ourselves, and Irish, that was his nickname, was on my wing, and we were using hand signals to identify how much fuel we had left, how much time to get to the carrier, make sure we could get there and so forth, because my radio had been blown to smithereens and was not functioning at all. So we were up close together and exchanging hand signals, and which was kind of dumb because we had no way to clear our tail to make sure that there was nobody coming down behind us, which is exactly what happened. And two enemy fighters came down and caught us sitting ducks. And the only reason that in the world that I survived that first attack was that the enemy, your machine guns are located in your wings, and they converge at a certain point in space, usually about 900 feet. So the only thing that happened was this fellow who made a run on me, he opened fire maybe a second too late, or maybe 2 seconds at the most, and I was sitting right in the center point of that cone, while around me things were coming apart. And Harrigan was badly hit, and he disappeared. I couldn't tell what happened to him. I had my hands full. And this fellow was just making runs on me. That's attacks on me. He would use what we call a beautiful overhead run. He was a very good pilot. And he kept making runs on me, and I knew exactly where I was. He had split an oil line. I couldn't add much throttle. I'd get oil all over everything. I had a fire in the right wing. And most importantly, his firing destroyed the gun solenoid, which is the firing mechanism that controls 6 machine guns. I had no offensive power whatsoever. And he had also blown the landing gear out of the wing. They were hanging in what we call hanging in trail. In other words, they would drop down a little bit and were just being trailed by the air. And things were in pretty bad shape. And obviously, as he kept making these runs, when I say runs, there were probably 3 or 4. Took a little time each time. And he kept getting closer and closer, and I would wait when I see him coming down. I would wait until I knew he had to open fire, and I would pull the aircraft in a very tight turn, which would essentially destroy his lead for hitting the plane. But he was getting what we call flatter and flatter, which meant easier and easier, and the end was inevitable. There was no way I could get away from him. And it just so happened that Mike Wolf, a friend of mine, was leading his division. The division is made up of 4 planes. And they had also missed a rendezvous, and they were returning from just outside Iwo Jima back to the carrier. And he said he looked over and he saw against the clouds beyond an airplane going almost straight up and rolling over and coming straight down. And of course he didn't know whether that was a friendly plane or an enemy plane, but one of them had to be friendly and one of them had to be enemy. So, to make a long story short, I hope, he came over and the plane that was making runs on me saw him coming, and he took off back to Iwo Jima, and we headed on back to the ship. I made it back to the ship. I had trouble getting aboard because I couldn't get my flaps down. The hydraulic system had been shot out, and they would not bring you aboard without flaps unless it was an emergency, and they finally realized it was an emergency, and they let me come aboard without flaps. And the airplane was junk, but it was good junk because it kept flying, and they removed the valuable instruments they wanted to keep, and then they pushed it over the side. It was not worth saving.
Daniel Carmichael ranks in the top 20 of all Navy Hellcat aces who fought in World War II. He is credited with at least 12 kills and was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Silver Star, and the Air Medal with Gold Star. I hear you say